All right, thank you, Sophie and Nadia, for the report. So as we heard just now, Malaysia are able to keep cooking oil prices low at 8,500 rupiah per kilogram if you convert it to Indonesian rupiah, or about 7,650 rupiah per liter. Indonesia cannot. It's still quite high, 14,000 rupiah and above. Now, why is this? Well, I'm joined by Mohammad Faisal, who is the Executive Director of the Center of Reform on Economics, or Core Indonesia think tank. Thank you so much for joining us. So as we know, both Indonesia and Malaysia, thank you for joining us. So both Indonesia and Malaysia are the world's largest producer of crude palm oil, the ingredient necessary for making cooking oil. So is Malaysia able to keep
Hello?
I think we're having some...
Mas Krishna, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
So first of all, there is subsidy in Malaysia, the same as what Indonesia, the Indonesian government has done. In Malaysia, the subsidy, especially for cooking oil, is called Cooking Oil Stabilization Scheme. There's a scheme for cooking oil price stabilization. So the government provide about 60,000 metric ton per month for the subsidized cooking oil. And as Nadia said, a reporter from Malaysia said that as the result, the subsidized cooking oil in Malaysia, about 8,500 rupiah per kilogram. So cheaper than the subsidized cooking oil in Indonesia, and also the non-subsidized one. So what happened in Malaysia? It is true, as Nadia said, that the demand is smaller in Malaysia compared to Indonesia. But don't forget that the supply in Indonesia is also high. That's why, as the Minister of Trade said, that actually the supply is enough, the stock is enough, actually, no matter how big is the demand. So the problem, I think, is not in the supply side. The problem is more at the downstream side or the distribution side. In Malaysia, if we look at the regulation, there is a regulation in Malaysia called Price Control and Anti-Profiteering Act. It was stipulated since 2011. So this regulation, it regulates the pricing mechanisms, especially for food commodities. And there is a prohibitions for any players involved in the business to take excessive profits from the trading, from the distribution, etc. And as enforcement, there is also the so-called, in Bahasa Malaysia, it's called the Majelis Harga Negara, which is National Pricing Council. They monitor the price of the food commodities, and also they assess the stock for food commodities. And they also, over time, they keep monitoring the stock and also the price. So they really look at every single chain of the distribution along the distribution channel. And in Indonesia, we have also Undang-Undang number 7 or Law number 7 in 2014 on trade. So there is a regulation in the form of law. But apparently this law has not sufficiently controlled the food price in Indonesia. And in this law, there is no mention regarding the speculative practices or speculation or profiteering, whether there will be a punishment or there will be monitoring or etc. There is no mention of that. So that's the difference between Indonesia and Malaysia in terms of the regulation and also in terms of the institutions. So not to mention also, if we look at the complexity of the distribution channels and also the comparison about the demand.
Right. So if I'm hearing you correctly, basically you're saying that the difference between Malaysia and Indonesia is that Malaysia is better at monitoring the distribution, making sure no one is doing any stockpiling, making sure the prices go up, taking more profits. Indonesia is not very good at the monitoring. So does that mean it has nothing to do with subsidies? Because you said that Indonesia has a great supply of it. We're one of the biggest producers of palm oil. So it has nothing to do with subsidies?
Yeah.
It's just money.
Yeah, as I said first of all, there is subsidy in Malaysia, but we also have subsidy before, and even our subsidy that it covers all types of cooking oil, not only the bulk cooking oil, the cheaper one, but also the packaged one. But because of the weaknesses in the distribution channel, so the subsidy is not effective. So the goal of the objective of the subsidy has not been achieved. So those who are with lower income population, which become the targets of the subsidy, have not received the subsidy because of the other problem, which is the distribution channel. So the problem is not necessarily about the subsidy. Even if we have greater subsidy, if we do not have proper control about the distribution channel, then it will not be effective. Like we see right now, the subsidized cooking oil, the bulk one is currently disappeared.
We're still with Mohammad Faisal, the Executive Director of Core Indonesia. Now, before we continue our talk, I want to play a clip from the Indonesian watchdog for business competition, the chairman, who said that 5 main businesses have essentially formed an oligopoly and dominating the cooking oil industry and are pushing up prices for profits. Let's take a listen to what he said.
Nah, problemnya ketika struktur pasarnya tidak sehat, dalam hal ini seperti minyak goreng kan struktur pasarnya oligopoli ya, di mana 5 pemain utama ini menguasai 60% lebih pasar tersebut. Tentunya ini memiliki posisi tawar yang kuat dibanding konsumen. Ya, artinya harga yang ditempuh, harga yang terjadi itu bukan harga mekanisme pasar sebenarnya, tapi harga untuk maksimisasi profit, memaksimalkan keuntungan.
Right. So as you heard just now, the head of the chairman of the watchdog of business cooking oil right now is not the actual market price; it's the profit maximizing price. So can you just explain to our viewers this oligopoly in the cooking oil industry, and is this what is actually pushing up cooking oil prices in Indonesia?
Okay, Mas Krishna. It is true that currently, if we look at the producing companies, there are about 4 or 5 large producing companies of cooking oil. But we don't only see the producer side, but also the distributor. There's also large distributing companies, about 4 or 5. So if we want to talk about oligopoly here, there is some oligopolies. But where is the problem actually rest? Now, let's have a look at the supply side. The supply side, if you look at the supply of cooking oil, is right now is about 2.8 million tons. And the global consumptions every month is about 1.5 to 1.6 tons per month, meaning there is actually a surplus in terms of the supply. So if we suspect there is an impact of the structure, which is the oligopoly structure, there must be in the distribution side. I don't think it has something to do with the producing companies. If to some extent, probably there is, but it's more to do with the distribution channel. So, however, we cannot just claim based on assumptions that because this is oligopoly, based on suspicion. I mean, the government has to make sure whether this is really the case, based on findings, based on monitoring along the distribution channel.
Right, because the Indonesian government, or the Indonesian Ministry of Trade, are saying that there's a cooking oil mafia or cooking oil cartel. But I mean, as you were saying just now, the problem is the distribution. So logically speaking, perhaps maybe these oligopolies are kind of withholding the supplies of cooking oil in order to push up prices. I mean, logically speaking, do you think that's what's happening?
Yeah. Well, there is always possibility, but we also need to define what the mafia we're talking about here. So if we look at the current increase in global CPO prices, I think it is very possible that domestic price at the current level, if we're talking about the unsubsidized packaged cooking oil, is currently very high. I'm not talking about the bulk ones, but for the bulk ones, which is still subsidized right now, when there is a bottleneck in the distribution chain, plus there is no additional supply for the subsidized cooking oil, which is the bulk cooking oil, I think, of course, the price will still be expensive. And don't forget also the shifting behavior. When the government limit the subsidy only for the bulk cooking oil, there will be an increased demand for the bulk cooking oil because there is a disparity between the subsidized, the bulk one, and also the unsubsidized, the packaged one. So there is a shifting. Those who previously consumed the package, the previously cheaper, right now they rush for the bulk cooking oil, which is the only subsidized one. So in this case, if there is no additional supply for the subsidized cooking oil, there will be, scarcity. There will be scarcity, and also the price still expensive, even though there is a subsidy. So without proper monitoring, once again, the subsidy will not be, effective. Yeah.
Right. So as you were mentioning just now, there has been changes in government policy very quickly. First, they subsidized the packaged cooking oil, setting it at 14,000 rupiah per liter, and then suddenly they let that price cap go. That price went up, and people were looking for bulk cooking oil instead.
Yeah.
And then the supply of bulk cooking oil went down, and then the price is all over the place. So I guess my question is, what should the government do? What should the Indonesian government do to kind of solve this problem?
Yeah. I think right from the start, there is no well-thought, well-designed policy from the beginning. There is no anticipation for the consequences when the government decide to, to make some policies regarding these cooking oil prices. So not only has it been unsuccessful to solve the problems at the downstream side, which is for the consumers, it has also created unnecessary problems at the production side. So currently, lots of producers, like the producer of chemicals, sarin, etc., has been closed because of this, not well policies like domestic market obligations, and also the subsidy which is not effective. So if we look at this currently, I think the current subsidy, which is only targeted for the lower income population, which is for the bulk cooking oil, I think it's more appropriate, more proper compared to the previous one, which is, well, like one size fits all to all types of cooking oil. It is currently more targeted, but once again, it has to be followed by proper monitoring, because if not, the subsidy will not be effective. Those that has been targeted to get the subsidy, they will not get it. And then also, I think the government also should reevaluate the other policy, which is the domestic market obligation, which is actually aimed at ensuring a proper supply at the upstream level. Because apparently there is no problem with the supply. The stock has been there. So there is no need to increase the percentage. I mean, I'm talking about the percentage of domestic market obligation, right, because it will hurt the producers. If the producer is injured, currently many producers, and not just relating to cooking oil, but also the other producers derived from CPO, right now are closed, and it has also has a bad impact, adverse impact on the economy and also for the business. So I think the government should reconsider the DMO and also sustain the subsidy for the bulk cooking oil, but they have to strengthen the monitoring and along the distribution chain.
Right. As you were saying, the Indonesian government needs to strengthen the monitoring of the distribution. That is where the problem is happening. So if we take a look back at Malaysia, what kind of things can we learn from what Malaysia is doing in terms of the monitoring? Because Indonesia also has a task force for commodities and so forth.
Yes.
So why is Malaysia doing it better than Indonesia? What can we learn so that our cooking oil prices can remain low, like in Malaysia?
Yeah, I think the monitoring mechanism should be stronger here in Indonesia compared to Malaysia, because the market is more complex. We have more informal sector than the formal sector. So it means that the government ability or difficulty in terms of monitoring is more complex here in Indonesia compared to Malaysia. So there should be a strong mechanism should be applied not only for cooking oil but also for all kinds of food commodities, especially which is sensitive. As I said earlier, in Malaysia, there is a certain body who is in charge in terms of monitoring the price of all food commodities in Malaysia. And as the result, if we look at the inflation figure between Malaysia and Indonesia, especially for food inflation, it is more stabilized in Malaysia in terms of inflation. While in Indonesia, if we look at volatile food inflation, it's always ups and down every year because of these problems.
Okay, so, but as you mentioned earlier, the subsidies for the bulk cooking oil is on the right path. Just very quickly, we have maybe about 15 seconds. Should the Indonesian government just keep up with what they're doing right now? Or is there something that needs, aside from the monitoring? Should they just keep
aside from the monitoring?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the fundamental problem is also that the government should also reevaluate the current law and regulations regarding food commodities, and also the to prevent the speculation practices which has not been properly mentioned or properly regulated in Indonesia. While in Malaysia there's some enforcement on that. So I'm also talking about the regulation and also the enforcement that we have to look at also, apart from the implementation relating to the monitoring.
Okay, great. Mohammad Faisal, Executive Director of Center of Reform on Economics, or Core Indonesia, thank you so much for your insights, giving much clearer detail on what's going on right now. Thank you so much for your insights. All right.